I've valued working alongside each of you to transform hearing accessibility across. Enough, Rayner cut in, his voice sharp as he gestured toward the door. We don't have time for this. Leave now. 23 faces stared at me in stunned silence. My research team, brilliant audiologists and engineers who'd stood beside me for years, looked down at their laps or glanced at each other with wide eyes. Nobody spoke, nobody moved. The presentation slides behind me still displayed our achievements. 83% improvement in speech recognition for individuals with moderate hearing loss. Over 5,000 people helped through our community clinics. Recognition from 3 international health organizations. I swallowed hard, feeling heat crawl up my neck. 7 years of dedication dismissed in 7 seconds. I understand, I said quietly, gathering my notes with trembling fingers. My heart hammered against my ribs as I closed my laptop, unplugged it, and slipped it into my bag. Rayner checked his watch impatiently. He'd been installed as technical director just 6 weeks ago, and this was clearly the moment he'd been waiting for. I looked at my team one last time. Lena, our signal processing genius, had tears streaming down her cheeks. Gustav, our oldest engineer, removed his glasses and wiped them furiously, unable to meet my eyes. Even Jace, always stoic and reserved, clenched his jaw so tight I could see the muscle twitching. It's been my greatest honor, I managed before walking out, my footsteps echoing in the absolute silence. Outside, spring sunshine felt like mockery. I made it to my car before the first sob escaped, pressing my forehead against the steering wheel as my shoulders shook. Everything I'd built, the technology that was helping thousands hear their loved ones clearly again, was now in the hands of someone who saw only profit margins and quarterly reports. I started the engine and drove away from Audiovance headquarters for what I thought was the last time. I didn't know then that in less than 4 hours, they'd be desperately calling me back. But first, I had somewhere more important to be. Before we continue with what happened next, I want to thank you for joining me on this journey. If you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories like this one. Your support means everything, and I read every comment. Now, let's get back to what happened after I left Audiovance that morning. My name is Vienne Rhodes. I'm 36, obsessively detail-oriented, and passionate about sound. I grew up with a grandfather who slowly lost his hearing in his 60s and watched him withdraw from family gatherings because hearing aids only made everything louder, not clearer. The technology failed him, and it was failing millions like him. After getting my double doctorate in audiology and electrical engineering, I turned down lucrative offers from major tech companies to work at Audiovance, a mid-size hearing technology firm willing to let me pursue my unconventional theories about adaptive sound processing. When I arrived at the weekend hearing clinic I'd established in Riverdale, a neighborhood most corporations wouldn't consider worthy of attention, I pushed everything else away. The clinic operated out of a renovated community center, nothing fancy, but equipped with everything we needed to help people who fell through the cracks of the medical system. Mrs. Amelia Gonzalez waited for me, her weathered hands folded neatly in her lap. At 78, she'd spent 40 years as a violinist in the city orchestra before gradually losing the higher frequencies in her hearing range. I missed the appointment time, didn't I? She asked, voice wavering. My bus was late. I glanced at my watch. It was 10:15, and her appointment had been for 10. You're right on time, I lied gently, leading her into our testing room. I have something special for you to try today. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. Your granddaughter's recital is tomorrow, right? I asked, retrieving a small case from our prototype cabinet. Mrs. Gonzalez's eyes lit up. Yes, little Isabella, first chair violin at 8 years old. I haven't heard her play clearly in 2 years. I opened the case, revealing 2 tiny devices. These use our newest adaptive processing algorithm. Instead of amplifying everything, they identify musical tones and enhance their natural qualities. My phone buzzed again, and again. I switched it to silent. For the next hour, I worked with Mrs. Gonzalez, fine-tuning the settings as she listened to violin recordings. When I played a piece by Vivaldi, her favorite composer, tears welled in her eyes. I can hear the bow on the strings, she whispered. I had forgotten that sound. It was during this moment that my phone, though silenced, lit up repeatedly on the counter. 23 missed calls, 14 voicemails, 39 text messages. As Mrs. Gonzalez practiced inserting and removing the devices herself, I quickly scanned the messages. International Consortium arrived early, asking specifically for you. Board in emergency session. $80 million funding decision happening today. Where are you? Call immediately. The most recent one, from the board chair himself. Critical situation. Your presence required urgently. I put the phone down and returned my attention to Mrs. Gonzalez. How does that feel? Comfortable? She nodded, beaming. Perfect. What do I owe you for these? They're part of our community testing program. All I ask is that you come back next week and tell me how Isabella's recital goes. After Mrs. Gonzalez left, I had 3 more appointments. A retired construction worker with noise-induced hearing loss, a teenager with auditory processing difficulties, and a bus driver struggling with directional hearing. Each one represented why I'd built my research program the way I had. Real people, with real needs that standard hearing aids couldn't address. It was 2:30 p.m. when I finally checked my voicemails. VN, this is Harold Bennett. The board chair's voice sounded strained. The Global Accessibility Consortium representatives arrived this morning instead of next week. They're specifically asking for you. They won't speak with anyone else. Call me immediately. The next message, this is urgent. The consortium has an $80 million funding initiative, and they're making their decision today. Rayner tried presenting to them, but they cut him off. They want to see your community integration model. And the most recent, whatever happened this morning was a misunderstanding. Your position remains open. Please come to headquarters as soon as possible. I leaned against the wall, processing what was happening. The Global Accessibility Consortium represented disability advocates and medical systems across 16 countries. They'd visited our community sites and testing labs last month, impressed by our approach, prioritizing affordability alongside innovation. And apparently, they'd made their decision. I called Bennett back. Where have you been? He demanded. Working with patients at the Riverdale Clinic, the one Rayner called a waste of resources yesterday. We need to discuss priorities later. The consortium representatives refuse to meet with anyone else. They've made it clear their funding depends on your involvement. I'm no longer with the company, I reminded him, feeling a strange calm settle over me, as was emphatically demonstrated this morning. A regrettable miscommunication, Bennett said quickly. What would it take to bring you back immediately? The question hung between us. I had prepared for many scenarios following my dismissal, but not this one. In my mind, Audiovance had chosen its path, prioritizing hospital contracts and expensive solutions over accessibility for ordinary people. But now, with the consortium's interest, I held unexpected leverage. I'm listening, Bennett pressed when I didn't immediately answer. I thought of Mrs. Gonzalez hearing violin strings clearly for the first time in years. I thought of my team, who believed in our mission. I established an independent accessibility division. I finally said, community-based testing and distribution continues as our primary approach. My team reports directly to me, not through technical management. We can't restructure the entire company because the consortium seems particularly interested in organizations with proven community integration. I cut in. Perhaps they'd prefer to back my independent venture instead. There was a long silence on the phone before Bennett spoke again. Come to the office in 1 hour. We'll discuss specifics. I ended the call and sat alone in the quiet clinic room, surrounded by the tools and technology I'd helped develop. A wild mix of emotions surged through me. Vindication, uncertainty, and something darker I wasn't ready to name. As I locked up the clinic, my phone buzzed with a text from Lena. What's happening? Board members running around like scared chickens. Rayner looks like he's about to explode. I simply replied, I'm coming back. Tell the team to wait for me. The drive to Audiovance headquarters took 30 minutes in afternoon traffic. I used that time to center myself, to remember what mattered. This wasn't about winning a corporate battle. It was about protecting the work that could help millions. Walking through the lobby felt surreal. The same security guard who'd watched me leave in tears hours earlier now nodded respectfully. In the elevator, I noticed my reflection, hair slightly disheveled, wearing jeans and a casual blouse from my clinic work, rather than my usual business attire. I hadn't dressed to impress anyone. Perfect. As the elevator doors opened on the executive floor, I saw Bennett waiting with 2 board members, Adira and Wilson. Their faces betrayed thinly veiled panic. They're in the demonstration lab, Bennett said without preamble. We told them you were at a community outreach event, which apparently impressed them even more. Who exactly is here? I asked as we walked briskly down the corridor. Teresa Ling, head of the consortium, representatives from healthcare systems in Germany, Brazil, and Japan, 2 patient advocacy directors. They've been evaluating technologies for their next major funding initiative. I nodded, processing this information, and Rainer Bennett winced. He attempted to present our new hospital-focused direction. Miss Ling stopped him 15 minutes in and asked specifically where you were. We reached the lab door, and Bennett placed his hand on my arm. Vienne, the company needs this funding. Whatever happened this morning was not a miscommunication. I cut him off. It was a deliberate choice, and now you're making another one. I pushed open the door to find 6 people gathered around our demonstration table where my newest prototype sat. The 3rd-generation adaptive processor, designed to map individual hearing profiles and adjust in real time to different sound environments. Teresa Ling, a petite woman with keen eyes and a formidable reputation in accessibility advocacy, looked up first. Dr. Rhodes, she said, extending her hand. Your absence was concerning. I apologize. I was fitting one of our community members with a prototype, an elderly musician hearing her granddaughter's violin playing clearly for the first time in years. Teresa's expression warmed. That's precisely what we want to discuss. While your colleagues were showing us revenue projections, we'd rather hear about impact. Over the next hour, I demonstrated our technology, explaining how our approach differed from traditional hearing aids. Unlike standard amplification, our system analyzed sound patterns and enhanced clarity based on individual needs. I showed research data from our community testing, tracking improvements in quality of life. The most significant innovation isn't technical, I explained, pulling up results from our neighborhood clinics. It's distribution. By establishing community testing sites, we've reached people who would never access traditional audiological services. Dr. Himura from Japan nodded. This matches what we observed during our visit to your West Side clinic last month. The participants spoke highly of your personal involvement. From the corner of my eye, I caught Rainer shifting uncomfortably. He clearly hadn't known about their previous visit. We're interested in your plans for scaling this model, Teresa said. Our funding initiative aims to improve hearing accessibility across diverse populations and income levels. I took a deep breath. Actually, I've developed a comprehensive expansion strategy for community-based distribution and training local technicians. I'd be happy to walk you through it. Excellent. Teresa smiled. We have time now, if you're available. Bennett stepped forward. Perhaps we should discuss internally first. Dr. Rhodes appears capable of presenting her own work, Teresa interjected coolly. Unless there's a reason she shouldn't. The tension in the room thickened. Bennett retreated with a tight smile. No reason at all, he conceded. For the next 2 hours, I outlined my vision for expanding our community approach while the consortium members asked thoughtful questions. When Teresa finally stood, signaling the end of our meeting, she turned to Bennett. We'll be making our decision by the end of the day. Dr. Rhodes's approach aligns perfectly with our mission of making assistive technology truly accessible. After they left, the executive team gathered in the conference room. The atmosphere had shifted dramatically from this morning. Clearly, we need to revisit our strategy, Bennett began diplomatically. Rainer leaned forward. With all due respect, chasing foundation money is short-sighted. The real profit lies in medical partnerships. The consortium's $80 million would fund operations for 2 years, Adira pointed out, and open doors to their international healthcare networks. The debate continued while I sat quietly, letting them talk around me. Finally, Bennett turned to me. Vienne, what are your terms? I slid a document across the table. I've outlined them here. Independent division with direct board reporting. My team restored to previous roles. Community program expansion. And Rainer removed from any oversight of my work. Rainer's face flushed. This is absurd. You can't restructure leadership based on one potential grant. It's not about the grant, I said calmly. It's about the vision for this company. Do we exist to help people hear better, or to maximize shareholder returns? Those aren't mutually exclusive, Wilson argued. They are when you're targeting only those who can afford premium prices, I countered. Our technology can help millions who've been ignored by traditional hearing aid manufacturers. Bennett studied my document. Some of these terms exceed reasonable accommodations. Then decline them, I said simply. The consortium seemed very interested when I mentioned potentially launching an independent venture. The room went silent. You wouldn't, Rainer challenged. I met his gaze steadily. I built this technology. I established the testing methodology. I trained the team. Do you really want to test what I would or wouldn't do? An hour later, after intense negotiation, Bennett signed the agreement establishing my autonomous division with protected methodology and funding. The official announcement would come tomorrow, but effective immediately. I was back with expanded authority. As I walked toward my old laboratory, I passed Rayner in the hallway. He stepped directly into my path. "Enjoy your victory lap," he said quietly. "But understand something. This company will eventually answer to shareholders, not charity cases. Your approach is unsustainable." I regarded him calmly. "Is that why you tried to destroy 7 years of my work in 6 weeks? I was hired to make this company profitable. No, you were hired to be the board's instrument when they got nervous about quarterly numbers. But you overplayed your hand." His eyes narrowed. "This isn't over, VN." "On that we agree," I replied before walking past him. When I entered the lab, my entire team was waiting. Their faces lit up as I walked in, and Lena rushed forward to hug me. "What happened?" Gustav asked, adjusting his glasses. "1 minute we're watching you get forced out, the next the board's in crisis mode." I explained about the consortium, watching their expressions shift from confusion to delight. "So we're back? All of us?" asked Jace, our quietest team member. "Yes, and with more independence than before. We'll report directly to the board, not through technical leadership." Lena grinned. "Meaning not through Rayner? That must be killing him." "He's been reassigned to regulatory compliance," I confirmed, effectively removed from product development. The celebration that followed was cathartic, laughter mixed with lingering disbelief. We were back, stronger than before. Later, as the team dispersed, Lena lingered behind. "I heard what Rayner was doing behind the scenes," she said quietly. "Trying to patent modifications to your original designs under his name, telling investors our community approach was being phased out." I nodded. "I suspected as much. Aren't you angry? He nearly destroyed everything." I looked around the lab, our testing equipment, prototypes, the wall covered with letters from people whose lives we'd improved. "Anger isn't productive," I said carefully. "Understanding motivations is." Lena studied me. "You seem different. More strategic?" I suggested. She nodded slowly. "Should I be worried about what happens next?" I smiled. "Not if you're on my team." As the days passed, we fell back into our work rhythm. The consortium officially announced their $80 million funding, with Audiovance as the primary recipient. My division expanded, hiring new audiologists and engineers focused on accessible technology. From the outside, it appeared I'd gotten everything I wanted. My team, my research, my approach validated. The business magazines even ran profiles calling me the accessibility innovator changing how we hear. But beneath the surface, I hadn't forgotten what almost happened. How easily 7 years of work could be dismantled. How disposable I'd been made to feel. Rayner remained at Audiovance, diminished but not defeated. I occasionally caught him watching me during board meetings, his expression unreadable. We maintained professional distance, though tensions simmered whenever we occupied the same space. 3 months after my triumphant return, as Lena called it, Teresa Ling invited me to speak at the Global Accessibility Conference in Singapore. The invitation included a private note. "We should discuss your future beyond Audiovance." I kept the note to myself, not sharing it even with my team. Some decisions needed to mature in silence. The night before my departure for Singapore, I worked late in the lab, finalizing presentation materials. A notification popped up on my computer, a calendar reminder for the quarterly board meeting scheduled during my absence. Out of habit, I clicked to view the agenda Bennett had distributed. The last item made my heart stop. Strategic realignment, evaluation of autonomous division structure and integration options. I checked the recipient list. My name wasn't on it. This version of the agenda had been sent only to board members, and I noted with a chill, Rayner. They were planning to use my absence to reevaluate my division's independence. 3 months of success meant nothing against corporate instincts. I closed my laptop slowly, a strange calm settling over me. All this time, I'd been playing chess while believing the game was over. But the board, with Rayner's influence, was still moving pieces. My phone buzzed with a text from Gustav. Strange meetings happening in finance department. Overheard discussion about restructuring autonomy and streamlining innovation channels. Something's coming. I texted back. Noted, Say nothing. See you tomorrow before my flight. That night, as I packed for Singapore, I added one extra item to my suitcase. A small external hard drive containing information I'd been quietly gathering since my return. Insurance, I told myself. Just insurance. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. It was the foundation of something that had been forming in my mind since the moment Rainer had interrupted my goodbye speech. Because sometimes, the only way to protect what matters is to be willing to burn everything else to the ground. The next morning, I arrived at the lab early to finalize preparations before my flight. Gustav was already there, his silver-rimmed glasses reflecting the blue glow of his monitor. "You should see this," he said, pulling up an email chain he'd been inadvertently copied on. The messages between Rainer and the finance director discussed reallocating resources from community programs and streamlining decision-making processes. "They're waiting for you to leave the country," Gustav said, his voice tight with concern. "I expected this," I replied, surprising him with my calmness. "They were never going to let our division remain truly independent." "What are you going to do?" I checked my watch. "Right now, I'm going to catch my flight to Singapore. But first, I need your help with something." For the next hour, Gustav and I prepared what I called contingency materials. When Lena arrived, I brought her into our confidence as well. By the time I left for the airport, my small but loyal inner circle understood their roles perfectly. On the 14-hour flight to Singapore, I refined my presentation while my mind continually returned to the board's betrayal. It wasn't surprising. Corporations protect themselves first. The truly disappointing realization was how quickly they'd reverted to type, even after the consortium's validation of our approach. Teresa Ling met me at the hotel lobby the evening before the conference. "Your presentation materials arrived safely?" she asked after we exchanged greetings. "Yes, everything's ready for tomorrow." Over dinner in a quiet corner of the hotel restaurant, Teresa broached the subject from her note. "I've been following Audiovance's stock movements since our funding announcement." "Interesting pattern," I nodded. The initial surge when our partnership was announced, followed by a gradual decline as investors realized our community-first approach meant slower growth than projected. "Shareholders often have shorter vision than innovators," Teresa observed. Which brings me to what I wanted to discuss. The consortium is establishing an independent research entity, focused exclusively on accessibility technology development without shareholder pressures. My chopsticks paused midair. A non-profit research institute? With sustainable funding models through licensing and partnerships, Teresa clarified. But yes, mission-driven rather than profit-driven. We need a founding director with both technical expertise and unwavering commitment to accessibility. The implication hung between us, unspoken, but clear. "That's an interesting proposition," I said carefully, "especially given certain developments at Audiovance." Teresa's eyes narrowed slightly. "Problems with your autonomous arrangement?" "Let's just say autonomy means different things to different people." We discussed the consortium's vision further, with Teresa outlining a structure that would protect research integrity while ensuring financial sustainability. By the end of dinner, I had a formal offer to consider, to build something entirely new, free from corporate constraints. "Take some time," Teresa advised. "It's a significant change." "Actually," I replied, "my decision may come sooner than you think." The Global Accessibility Conference opened the next morning with over 2,000 attendees from 60 countries. My presentation, Adaptive Hearing Technology, Community Integration Models, was scheduled just before lunch. As I waited backstage, my phone vibrated with a message from Lena. Board meeting started. "Rainer presenting now. Document attached." I opened the attachment to find the presentation Rainer was currently delivering to Audiovance's board. The title slide read, "Optimization Strategy, Maximizing Return on Consortium Investment." Scrolling through, I saw exactly what I'd expected. Proposals to centralize decision-making, shift focus to hospital sales channels, and streamline community programs. The final slide laid it out explicitly. Recommendation: reintegrate autonomous division under technical leadership. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. Instead, I felt an odd serenity as I closed the document and prepared to take the stage. My presentation to the conference began with data and technical explanations. How our adaptive processing improved speech recognition. How community testing provided superior real-world optimization. The audience nodded along, impressed but not yet moved. Then I shifted. Technical specifications matter, I said, clicking to a slide showing Mrs. Gonzalez at her granddaughter's violin recital. But this is why we do this work. I shared stories from our community sites: the retired teacher who could participate in book club again, the young man with processing issues who could finally handle workplace conversations, the grandmother hearing her grandchild's voice clearly for the first time. The room grew silent, completely engaged. These successes happened because we prioritized accessibility over profitability, I continued. Because we built technology with communities, not just for them. I paused, looking out at the rapt audience, knowing that what I said next would irrevocably change my path. Which is why today I'm announcing the establishment of the Adaptive Hearing Initiative, an independent research and development organization dedicated to creating accessible hearing technology for everyone, regardless of economic status. A murmur ran through the audience. With initial funding from private donors and a licensing structure that prioritizes accessibility, we'll expand our community-based model globally, partnering with local health providers to reach populations currently underserved by traditional hearing aid manufacturers. Teresa, sitting in the front row, gave me a subtle nod. We had finalized the details over breakfast. She'd fast-tracked the consortium's plans based on my information about Audiovance's intentions. The initiative launches next month with research labs in 3 countries and community testing sites in 12 cities worldwide, and I'm honored to serve as its founding director. The audience erupted in applause. As I wrapped up my presentation, my phone silently collected messages from Audiovance, increasingly urgent communications from Bennett and other board members. At the reception afterward, industry leaders and healthcare representatives surrounded me with questions and partnership offers. I navigated these conversations while keeping an eye on my phone, watching the drama unfold back at Audiovance headquarters. Lena's updates came steadily. Board meeting interrupted by consortium representatives. Bennett looks like he's seen a ghost. They're asking for emergency session with full leadership team. 3 hours later, as I was discussing implementation strategies with healthcare providers from rural India, my phone rang with Bennett's number. I excused myself to take the call. "What have you done?" he demanded without preamble. "I gave a presentation about accessible hearing technology." I replied calmly. "Which part concerns you?" You announced a competing organization without notice. The consortium representatives just informed us they're redirecting 40% of their funding to your new initiative. 50%, actually. I corrected him. "The announcement goes out tomorrow." "This is a breach of your contract," Bennett sputtered. "Our legal team should review Section 12.8 of my employment agreement." I interrupted. "The non-compete clause specifically exempts nonprofit research organizations focused on accessibility, a provision I insisted on during our renegotiation." Silence stretched between us. "You planned this," he finally said, his voice hollow with realization. "No, you planned to dismantle my division the moment I left the country. I simply prepared for that eventuality." "The board never voted on any changes," he protested weakly. Yet Rayner's presentation to the board today clearly outlined those exact changes. Curious timing. Another lengthy pause. "What do you want?" "Nothing from Audiovance. My resignation letter has already been delivered to Human Resources, but my team deserves better than what you planned for them." "What does that mean?" "It means 16 of Audiovance's top audiologists and engineers have already received offers from the initiative. Competitive salaries, research freedom, and genuine commitment to their work." I could almost hear Bennett calculating the damage, the loss of talent, the reduced consortium funding, the inevitable questions from shareholders when this became public. "You've been planning your exit since the day you returned," he said, anger finally breaking through his shock. "No," I corrected him. "I gave Audiovance every chance to honor our agreement. But while I was building hearing devices for people who needed them, Rayner was building a case to undermine everything we'd accomplished. You chose your path. Now I'm choosing mine." I ended the call and returned to the reception, where Teresa introduced me to additional consortium members, eager to support the initiative. By evening's end, our funding was secure, our initial research sites confirmed, and our leadership team taking shape. Later that night, alone in my hotel room, I received one final message from Lena. Rayner just cleared out his office. Board asked for his resignation after emergency session. Gustav and I accepted our offers. 14 others did too. "When do we start?" I smiled, feeling the weight of years lift from my shoulders. We already have. 2 weeks later, I stood in our new headquarters, a renovated warehouse with research labs, meeting spaces, and an open concept design that facilitated collaboration. The Adaptive Hearing Initiative's mission statement hung in the entrance. Clear sound for every ear, accessible to every person. Our team, expanded now to 30 researchers and technicians, buzzed with energy as they set up equipment and testing stations. Many had followed me from Audiovance, but others came from universities, competing companies, and healthcare systems, drawn by our mission. Audiovance's stock had dropped 18% since my announcement. Industry analysts questioned their ability to fulfill the consortium's requirements with their depleted research team. Rayner had disappeared from the industry entirely, his reputation tarnished by what Financial News delicately called strategic mismanagement. As I walked through our community testing area, where real people would help refine our technology, Teresa joined me. "The first community sites open next week," she noted. "Impressive timeline. We're building on proven methods," I replied. "And motivated people work quickly." She studied me for a moment. "You never wanted revenge against Audiovance, did you?" I considered this as we watched my team calibrating equipment, their excitement palpable. "No, I wanted to protect the work. The people who need this technology don't care about corporate politics." "Still, I can't help but appreciate the poetry," Teresa observed. "They tried to silence you twice, and each time, it only amplified your voice. And now, the hearing of thousands more people." I smiled at the metaphor. In acoustics, we call that constructive interference, when waves align to create something stronger than either could alone. 2 days later, we welcomed our first community participants, including Mrs. Gonzalez, who'd agreed to help test our newest music-focused algorithms. As she settled into our testing area, she noticed our mission statement. "This is why I followed you here," she said, adjusting her hearing device. "At Audiovance, I was a patient. Here, I'm a partner." In that moment, watching her eagerness to contribute, I knew with absolute certainty that I'd made the right choice. Not just for me, or for my team, but for everyone who deserved to hear the world clearly. Thank you so much for staying with me through this entire story. If you connected with Vienne's journey of resilience and purpose, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about people who refuse to be silenced. I'd love to hear in the comments about a time when you turned a setback into something even better than what you originally had. Remember, sometimes the most powerful response to being interrupted isn't to raise your voice, it's to change the conversation entirely.